Hi, welcome to this week's Word for Wednesday. The topic of this week is going to be something I spoke about on Sunday. I tried to post it online. We had two guest speakers Sunday, and I was going to post it online like I usually do, but there are some technical difficulties where the audio cut off on that halfway through. So I did still post it online, and you can still go hear one of our guest speakers, and it's worth listening to if you haven't listened to it yet. But the second guest speaker and my words afterwards got cut off. So today I'm going to kind of repeat what I said on Sunday and post it as our word for Wednesday. And both of our guest speakers this past Sunday gave a testimony about their lives. They tried to live their lives on their terms, and it ended in disaster for them. They both ended up in jail, and their testimony was about how God came and said to them, I got you, and I got something for you. Their testimonies were about how they tried to live their lives on their terms. It was a disaster, but Christ took their lives and turned it around. And that reminded me of some previous Word for Wednesdays that I did. And I guess today's going to kind of be a repeat of those, but it's still worth listening to. And today we want to look at how God can take people who maybe previously thought that God couldn't use them, God couldn't love them. But he took their lives and said, I got something for you. I got you and I got something for you. We heard that this past Sunday with our two guest speakers, and it reminds me of Moses in the Bible. Uh, he had a destiny laid on his life where he was supposed to free the Israelites from Egyptian rule. And he tried to do it once. Things got messed up. He ended up having to flee Egypt for his life, found himself in the wilderness where he became a shepherd. And after messing up previously, he thought, all right, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a shepherd. I guess I failed at what God wanted me to do. But God found him there 40 years later through the burning bush and said, Moses, I got you and I got something for you. I'm not done with you. I can still use you. And Moses went back and fulfilled God's calling. I think of Paul in the New Testament. He was a religious leader and he used his position, his authority to hunt down and persecute the fledgling Christian church. But, you know, he had a rough life. Not he didn't have a rough life. He had a pretty easy life, but he was a rough guy. He used it to visit violence on the new Christian community. But God found him. Christ found him on the road to Damascus and opened his eyes by closing his eyes and said, Paul, I got you and I got something for you. I got something I need you to do. So Paul did a lot of violence. Paul did a lot of sin. But God said, I can still use you. I think of the woman at the well in John chapter 4. You know, I think about this one a lot because Christ came to her at the well. And one of the things Christ said to her early on was, go call your husband. And her answer was, I have no husband. To which Jesus replied, well, you speak truly because you've actually had 5 husbands. And the man that you're with now isn't your husband. And we like to read that passage through 21st century eyes, where divorce is easy and it's usually instigated by the woman. And I've heard preachers talk about, well, this woman was hopping from bed to bed. And, she was, looking for fulfillment by being married. We look at that through 21st century eyes, and that's not what's going on there. In the first century Jewish culture, women had almost no rights. And one of the rights they didn't have a lot of was divorce. So if there was any rights that women did have for divorce in that culture, it was very rarely practiced because in that culture, a woman's security, a woman's identity within the larger culture depended upon who her nearest male relation was. And for younger women, that would have been the father. Younger girls, that would have been the father. But for more mature, you know, once they got to marrying age, that security and that identity would have depended on their husband. So, in almost no circumstances would a woman be looking for divorce in that culture. So, when Jesus says you have had 5 previous husbands, what he's saying is there were 5 times in your life where you were told by a man you're not good enough. 5 times in her life where a man said, I'm divorcing you. You are not fulfilling your duties as a wife, whatever they may be, usually bearing children. If she couldn't have children, the husband would have said divorce. But 5 times a man said, you're not good enough. And the man that she was currently with, she wasn't married to, which means she was probably exchanging sex in return for food, clothing, and shelter. But he wasn't marrying her, which means it's actually 6 times where a man's saying, you're not good enough. And Christ comes along and says, I've got you. I've got something for you. And that's what I heard this past Sunday when these gentlemen were giving their testimonies. They lived life on their terms. It ended in disaster, but they met Christ and he said, I got something for you. I can use you for something. You can come tell people about me. And isn't that the case in a lot of our lives? I don't know what it is. Maybe you've tried something in the past and messed up like Moses. Maybe you've lived a life that was wrong, like Paul. He lived a life that was full of violence beforehand. He persecuted Christians. But God said, I'm not done with you. I got something for you. Maybe you've lived life where other people told you, you're not good enough. You fall short. You don't measure up. But God can still use you. That's the testimony we heard this past Sunday. It's the testimony of a lot of Christians. Maybe it's the testimony of you. Maybe you have something in your life where you failed. You haven't measured up. You've lived a life that you know isn't right. But God can still use you. Give your life to Him. Thank you for joining me on this Word for Wednesday. This is a ministry of Lakefield Baptist Church. We are in Lakefield, Michigan. If you're in the area and don't have a church to go to on Sunday mornings, you're welcome to join us here at 11. Thanks for joining me.